Terrorists, like all criminals, look at the world a little differently from you and me. Where we see normality, they look for opportunity. Where we see an iconic building or part of our history, they see a target to attack. Where we see services to help us live our lives, they see a chance to disrupt them. Where we see somewhere bustling and busy, they see the opportunity to kill as many people as possible. So it's time we too looked a little closer.
Terrorists seek out places where they can make the biggest impact. They often target open places where it's easy to move about unnoticed. A transport hub perhaps, or a busy shopping centre, or a football stadium. Places that attract large numbers of people, often crowded together. Enclosed spaces such as theatres, concert arenas or nightclubs also make attractive targets. Although security may be tighter, the risk of being caught is outweighed by the huge publicity and outcry a successful attack will generate. But whichever you work at, the threat is very real.
Terrorists do careful research to ensure a successful attack. They gather all sorts of information, such as how easy it is to get close to the target, whether they need passes to get in, who or what might challenge them. They'll collect information when planning an attack, when the site is busiest, whether there are regular delivery times, what access there is for vehicles. And they'll pull information together and rehearse their plans, perhaps measuring or timing distances between entrances and exits. It's during this preparation leading up to an attack when we have the best chance of spotting suspicious behaviour, when the terrorist is at work and vulnerable to being exposed.
There is no profile for a terrorist, so you can't identify one by the way they look, their ethnicity, gender, age or clothing. It's their behaviour that identifies them. And in your role, you're ideally placed to recognise suspicious behaviour. Be alert to the threat, and you'll notice that when a terrorist is preparing for an attack, the way they act will seem out of the ordinary. Look closely and you'll see the criminal taking photographs doesn't always behave like a tourist taking photographs. A delivery man doing his job doesn't behave like a terrorist scouting entrances and exits. Trust your instinct when it tells you that things just don't look right.
When someone's behaviour at your place of work raises your concerns, you have every right to approach them. So, what type of behaviours are we talking about? Perhaps a person is in a restricted area. Perhaps they don't have the correct passes or authority to be there. Is someone you wouldn't expect making notes, drawing diagrams, taking measurements? Are they taking videos or photos? What are they trying to capture? Are they hiding their camera? Does it look like regular tourist photography or something out of the ordinary? Perhaps they're showing an interest in security features, even testing them. Maybe they're going out of their way to avoid being seen, hiding their face, wearing the wrong clothes for the weather, or even in disguise. And it's not just people on foot. Vehicles are used time and again by terrorists planning attacks. Be aware of vehicles parked out of place, left abandoned in restricted or sensitive areas, or maybe a vehicle retracing the same route.
If it sounds like common sense, that's because it is. But you have to act on your suspicions, trust your instincts. It will help give you confidence if you've taken the time to understand what normal activity or behaviour looks like where you work, so you can identify what's out of the ordinary. Then, if something doesn't feel right, you need to investigate to understand the situation better. Then you can decide whether to report the matter. But approaching someone and asking them to explain their presence or behaviour could be uncomfortable for both of you. Have confidence and remember the purpose of your role. Be open with the person about why you're speaking to them. If you're clear, calm and polite, most members of the public will understand your concerns. And remember that if someone really is gathering information, carrying out what we call hostile reconnaissance, then approaching them shows that you and your colleagues are alert, and that could just be enough to deter a criminal or terrorist from continuing with their plans.
Recognizing suspicious behavior is one thing. Knowing what to do next requires a little more confidence. You need clarity. Having recognized behavior that you feel is suspicious, you now need to understand the situation and decide whether your instinct is correct. Listen to an example and think about how this security guard tries to understand the man's motives for his behavior.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. So?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. I'm part of security here, and I'd just like to ask you a few questions as to the purpose as to why you're here, sir.
Why?
I've noticed you've been here since about 11:30. You've been taking some notes, and you've been coming in and out of entrances. What's the reason for your visit here, sir?
I'm here to visit a colleague.
A colleague. And who would that colleague be, sir?
His name's John.
John who?
Simons.
John Simons. Have you been here before, sir?
No, it's my first time.
Okay. So you've been here a while, as I said, you've been here since about 11:30 or so.
Yeah, I got here way too early.
You've been taking some notes on your paper there, sir, and coming in and out of the building a few times. Can I ask why?
It's research.
Research. Can you go into a little bit more detail?
Well, I'm a writer. Sorry, it's a bit embarrassing. I don't like to talk about my work.
That's okay. It's no problem. So the gentleman, which floor does he work on, sir?
I've no idea.
You have no idea. So, and your appointment is at?
We were meant to meet at 1 o'clock.
You meant to be one. So you've got about 15 minutes or so, yeah? But you've been here an awfully long time. Do you have a telephone number for the gentleman?
I don't, I'm afraid, no.
An email address?
But that's on my computer at home. We've just been conversing by email.
But you've been here since about 11:30.
As I say, I like to leave extra time. How did you know how long I've been here?
So we're part of security here.
Yeah, but I don't see any cameras, which is unusual for a place like this.
No. I can't go into too much detail, but the security is very important here. But as I said...
So there's more than one of you then?
There's lots of us.
Is there someone watching us on a hidden camera somewhere?
So I'm not going to go into detail like that. What I'm going to do is I've taken the gentleman's name, which was,
Right.
sorry?
John Roberts.
John Roberts. Okay, sir. What I'm going to ask you to do is if the gentleman's going to meet you in the next 15 minutes or so and you're at the location, just bear with me for 1 second and I'm just going to try and get hold of Mr. John for you, okay? And,
Okay, thanks.
I'm part of security here, so I'd just like to make sure that you're on time and there's no hiccups with your meeting. If you could just take a seat for me a moment, sir.
There's not a problem, is there?
There's no problem whatsoever. You take a seat. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, now let's review the conversation. I think the security guard did a good job here. He explained who he was and why he decided to speak to this person. His tone of voice was confident and friendly, and he wasn't making a scene in front of other people in the area. There was no reason for the man he approached to feel threatened or harassed. However, I'd be wary of someone asking for details about the CCTV and security staff on site. Ask yourself, why would that be of interest to him? But it's not just about the questions people ask you, it's also about how they answer your questions. Try to get the person talking. In this case, the security guard asked questions about who he was meeting and why he was here so early. The man was vague with his answers. He couldn't remember his colleague's name properly, couldn't provide any contact details, and he'd been hanging around a long time without approaching reception. In addition, the lack of details in his responses meant for me that the story was unconvincing. What was now crucial was that the security guard went away and verified his story.
Reporting any suspicion is very important. You might be reluctant to do so. Maybe you're embarrassed, or you don't want to get involved. In some cases, you might worry about being seen to be overreacting.
It's recognised that we're in a unique position to guard against the threat from terrorism. So if you have any doubt, report it. Use the word salute to help you remember what to pass on. Situation, who or what you picked up on. Activity, what was happening? What was the person or vehicle doing? Location, where exactly was this? Unit, who made the observation? Time, time and date of the instinct being reported. Equipment. Any equipment you used for surveillance detection, such as a specific CCTV camera. Also, remember to note descriptions of any individuals involved. If you don't have a name from their identification, still record their age, hair colour, height, clothes, gender, ethnicity and any distinguishing features such as facial hair or tattoos.
It's important to find out what your specific procedures for reporting are at your place of work. And if in doubt, call any suspicions through to the number on screen.
Have the confidence to make the right decision. Follow that simple process of recognising, understanding and reporting. It will help to protect the places where we live and work. You will make those places safer for all of us. Now, there's 3 things you can do to start this process.
First, consider what ordinary behaviour looks like at your place of work. How do you expect people to be dressed or to behave? Would they be alone? What activities would you expect them to be carrying out? Do this and it will be easier to recognise suspicious behaviour.
Secondly, you need to understand someone's behaviour. What details can you obtain by asking questions? What excuses can they give you? What questions can you ask to test the plausibility of those excuses?
And finally, know your reporting procedures.